Reina and I got married at a very auspicious time. We got married on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Aleph Nisan. And some of you may know that the Mishkan was completed on Aleph Nisan, on the 1st of Nisan. So Reina and I are hoping that this signifies that our home will be like the Mishkan, and that Hashem's presence should rest in our home, and it should be a bias. It should be a bias Neman, but also a bias for Hashem, where Hashem can rest, and where we should bring Torah and Avodas Hashem into our homes at all time. That being said, when we look back at the building of the Mishkan, we find that the pasuk talks about the Nesiim who gave the last 3 gifts of the Mishkan. The last 3 gifts were the Keteris, the Avnei Shoyam, and check up the last one. Yasin. It's too dark to read notes.
Flashlight.
Oh, here. So the pasuk says they gave Shemen la'Maor, Besamin la'Keteris, Avnei Shoyam la'Ephod v'la'Choshim. And if one looks at the spelling of the word Nesiim, it's spelled rather peculiarly. It's missing 2 yuds in the name, whereas usually Nesiim is spelled Nun, Shin, Yud, Aleph, Yud, Mem. Over here it's spelled Nun, Shin, Aleph, Mem. There's 2 yuds missing, the one before and after the Aleph. And obviously the Medrash asks, why are there 2 yuds missing from the Nesiim, the word Nesiim? So the Medrash answers that they were the last ones to give. And basically what they did was they procrastinated. They said, we'll let everyone else give all the other gifts, and whatever's lacking, whatever's missing from the gifts from the Mishkan, we'll complete that deficit. And we'll give the final gifts. And that's why by the time everyone was finished giving the gifts for the Mishkan, there were only 3 gifts that were left, and those were these 3 things: the Keteris, the Avnei Shoyam, and the Shemen la'Maor, the oil that was used for lighting the menorah. So the pasuk is really saying, is admonishing the Nesiim, and it's saying that they did something wrong by the fact that they waited till the very end in order to give the gifts to the Mishkan, and therefore the pasuk dropped 2 yuds from their name, in order to rebuke the Nesiim for what they did in waiting for the last minute. And the question that Reb Zev Leff asks, he asked that first of all, the Avnei Shoyam were extremely expensive jewelry. I'm sure Reina would be extremely happy, would be ecstatic if I gave her Avnei Shoyam on a regular basis. But any Rosh Hashiva, anyone who runs an organization would be ecstatic from receiving these multi-million-dollar jewels, gems for the Mishkan. So the question is that what was so wrong with what they did? And the second question is why specifically was their punishment that 2 yuds were dropped from their name? Why not maybe a nun should have been dropped, maybe a shin, aleph, there's many other letters. Why was a letter dropped at all? Could have just rebuked them straight up in the pasuk. Why specifically these 2 yuds dropped from the Nesiim's name? And the answer that he says is that it's not so much that they procrastinated in giving their gifts to the Mishkan and they waited to the last minute. Their problem was in their mentality straight from the start. The Nesiim's problem was that they thought that they were the ones giving the gifts to the Mishkan, and there was an actual deficit, and Hashem needed their help. So that's why they waited to the end. They waited till everyone else brought all the, and we'll make up whatever needs to be done. So they were looking at giving for the Mishkan as that there was a need, there was a deficit, and we're the ones completing that deficit, we're the ones completing that need. And really they got it all wrong. When it comes to the Mishkan, Hashem doesn't need the Nesiim's help. He didn't need their help. What Hashem wanted was the Nedivas Lev. He wanted them to give from their own fruition. They shouldn't care about what's missing from the Mishkan, what needs to be done. They should just focus on the active giving, on the coming from their own fruition, from their own desire to give, regardless of what or what not needs to be done. And that was the Nesiim's mistake. And he explains that that's the reason why the Nesiim's punishment was specifically that 2 yuds were dropped from their name. Because if you drop the 2 yuds from the word Nesiim, you're able to spell it nosim, right? Nun, shin, aleph, mem. You can read that nosim, which means those that are carried. Because Nesiim means those who carry others, right? Nose means carry. Nesiim means those that carry others. That was the job of the Nesiim. And instead, by them waiting to the end, by them having this mentality that we're the ones who are carrying others, right? We're the ones who need to give to the Mishkan needs us. So Hashem was teaching them a lesson. I was saying that, no, you guys aren't the Nesiim. You're not carrying the other people. You're not carrying the Mishkan. Hashem, we don't need you for the Mishkan. You're Nosim. You are those who are being carried by others. It's the Mishkan that's carrying you, not the other way around. And this is a tremendous lesson that we could take into our lives, especially when giving tzedakah. Often we think that because when changing hands, it's me giving to the other person. Really, we think that it's us giving to the poor. Really, it's the other way around. The Gemara, I'm not sure where, 10a? 10a. The Gemara 10a says that Rabbi Akiva, Russia asked Rabbi Akiva, he said that why does Hashem make poor people, why does Hashem make poor people poor? And that rich people need to give to the poor people. Can't Hashem cut out the middleman? And Hashem would give straight to the poor people without us having to give to the poor. And Rabbi Akiva answered that really Hashem entrusts the money of the rich in the hands of the poor, meaning that when you're giving to the poor, it's not you who's giving to them. It's really them that are giving you the opportunity. Even though it looks like in the changing of hands that it's you giving to them, really Hashem gives you the money in order to provide for the poor people. And if we look at life with that mentality, that we are nosim, that we are those who are being carried, that Hashem doesn't need us to give, right? We're not the ones giving the tzedakah. It's the tzedakah that's giving to us. Then we can completely change our outlook in life. And I was thinking that if we look at Reina's names, I think it's no coincidence that Reina is spelled Reish, Yud, Yud, Nun, Aleph. And notice there are two Yuds in the name Reina, just like Nesiim. And I think that if you drop those two Yuds, then you're left with the letters Reish, Nun, Hey. Reish, Nun, Hey spells Rina. Rina is joy, Rina is bliss, but not only joy and bliss, it's bliss in an expression of song. It's when you're so happy you just sing out in joy. And I think that what that's coming to teach us is that just like the Nesiim, if we take the mentality that we're the ones being carried, and if we take that and interpret that into marriage, that it's not me who's carrying my partner, not focusing on the things that I'm giving to my partner, what I'm providing for her. If we change around our mentality, like the Nesiim, those two Yuds being dropped, that we're the ones being carried, and we focus on what our partner is doing for us, and I focus on what Reina is doing for me on a constant basis every day. So then I think we can drop those two Yuds, and we're left with Rina, which is an ultimate expression of joy and happiness in the form of song. And any of you who know Reina know that her natural expression is song. And I thank Hashem on many levels on a regular basis. But one of the things that I thank Hashem for is that I have a built-in marriage detector in Reina. And that marriage detector is that anytime Reina is humming and joyful and happy, and anytime she's singing in her free time, I know that I'm doing a good job. I know that Reina is happy. And anytime she's not singing, I know that I have to go back to step one and fix a couple things up, and I have to focus more on how she's carrying me, what she's providing for me, and not my expectations. So my bracha is that we should be able to focus on what the other one is providing for us and be left with Reish Nun Hey, that ultimate expression of joy and happiness, which is Rina, every day for the rest of our lives.
Amen.